This story was told to me by my friend David, someone I trust more than most people in my life. He's not the type to make things up. He's a retired park ranger, worked deep in the forests of Washington for almost 20 years. What he shared with me shook me to the core. And if you've ever taken a night hike or gone camping near old woods, you might want to reconsider after hearing this. David said it happened in the fall of 2014 during one of his routine solo patrols. It was a remote part of the Olympic National Forest, miles from the nearest trail and even further from any phone signal. He was doing a multi-day trek to inspect an old fire watchtower that hadn't been checked in years. Everything was quiet, just the way he liked it. The woods were dense, damp, and smelled like wet moss and pine. You could hear every stick crack under your boots, and at night, the sound of raindrops hitting the leaves felt almost like a lullaby. On the second night, as he set up camp near a clearing, he started hearing it. A whisper, not like wind passing through trees. This was different. It sounded like words hushed and just out of earshot. At first he thought it was in his head. Long patrols, isolation, it can mess with your senses. But the whispering didn't stop. It circled his tent like someone pacing just outside the canvas, murmuring nonsense, and then laughter, a low, cruel giggle that made his skin crawl. David didn't unzip the tent. He lay there, frozen, gripping his flashlight and his flare gun, trying to convince himself it was an animal, maybe a fox or a raccoon. But in his gut, he knew it wasn't. The next morning, there were footprints, bare human footprints in the mud. Small, almost childlike, but with twisted, unnatural angles. They circled the tent over and over, and then vanished into the woods without a trail. That's when he realized something wasn't right about this place. It didn't want him there. David wanted to pack up and leave, but the watchtower was only a few miles ahead, and he figured he'd check it quickly and be out by nightfall. That was the plan. The trail to the tower was overgrown. Moss had swallowed the old steps, and the structure creaked like it hadn't been touched in a decade. He climbed up slowly, carefully, and once inside, found the place in a state of decay. But oddly, not untouched. Someone, or something, had been there recently. On the dusty floor was a small pile of forest debris, feathers, bones, and a child's shoe. Just one. No animals had dragged it in. It was arranged like an offering, and on the wooden wall someone had scratched out words. David didn't want to read them aloud, but he told me the phrase repeated was, "We see you. We hear you. We are not gone." He stepped back from the wall, trying to steady his breath. And that's when he saw movement in the trees. Several dark shapes, just standing still in the rain, half hidden behind the thick trunks. No faces, just figures, watching. He raised his binoculars, and as he focused, one of the figures stepped to the side and vanished behind a tree. The others didn't move. They were too far to identify, but every hair on his body told him the truth. They weren't people. David stayed only long enough to document the tower and hiked back fast. Every so often he'd hear branches crack behind him. Once, he thought he caught a whisper just beside his ear, but no one was there. And when he looked down, he saw a wet handprint on his backpack, a small child-sized hand, but he hadn't touched any water. David didn't run. He said he wanted to. His instincts were screaming to bolt, but something told him not to. Like if he started running, those things in the woods would give chase. So he walked, fast but steady, refusing to look behind him. That's when the rain got heavier. Not normal rain, but thick, cold sheets. And mixed in with the sound of it, he swore he could hear children crying. Faint at first, almost lost in the downpour, then clearer, and they were all saying the same word. Stay. By the time he got back to the ranger station, it was dusk. His truck wouldn't start. Battery was dead, though it had been fine when he arrived. David sat inside, gripping the wheel, staring at the woods in his rearview mirror, because now he could see them. Figures, dozens, standing just at the tree line, silent, still. One of them stepped forward, a woman pale and barefoot, in a soaked white dress. Her eyes were gone, just black sockets. She raised one hand and pointed directly at him. That's when his radio, the one he'd packed just for emergencies, crackled to life. He didn't touch it, and what came through wasn't a weather alert or a ranger broadcast. It was a voice, his own voice, whispering, "You should have stayed." He finally got the engine running. How? He doesn't remember, and tore out of there, tires spinning in mud, headlights cutting through fog. When he reached the main road, the whispering stopped. The air cleared, but he said that for the next few nights, he dreamed of the woods, and every time he woke up with wet footprints on the floor. Not his. He hasn't been back since, and the ranger station burned down 2 years ago, 'cause unknown. No trace of the tower was ever found. This story was told to me by an old friend of mine, Jaden. He lives in New York now, but this happened a few years ago when he moved to a quiet rural part of Texas. Jaden had rented an old farmhouse way out in the middle of nowhere. No neighbors, no traffic, just fields, trees, and that eerie silence you only find deep in the country. Exactly what he thought he wanted. But on his very first night, he called me around 2 a.m. His voice was shaky. He said, "Dude, I know how this sounds, but I think there's someone under my bed." I laughed. "Come on, bro, you just moved in. You're tired, probably just hearing the house settle." But he wasn't joking. "No, man, I heard them, like, whispering. Not in English either. It sounded like Farsi or something, over and over, almost like chanting." That threw me off. Jaden doesn't scare easy. He's not the type to jump at shadows. He said he turned on the lights, looked under the bed. Nothing. He even searched the room and checked the doors and windows. Everything was locked. Still, the whispering wouldn't stop. He said it felt like someone was right below him, just talking into the floorboards. "I'm gonna record it tonight," he told me. "If I catch anything, I'll send it to you." The next morning, he texted me, "Listen to this." I put on my headphones, thinking I'd hear a creaky pipe or something, but what I heard made my stomach drop. There was this soft, breathy voice, a woman's voice, whispering in some foreign language, barely audible, but definitely there, and worse. The voice wasn't random. It was repeating the same thing, like a slow, broken chant. Jaden swore up and down there was nothing under the bed when he checked, but the recordings kept getting worse. Each night, the whispering got louder, closer. Sometimes it sounded like it was right next to the mic. One night he video called me, set his phone camera under the bed, and we just listened together in silence. And then we both heard it. A faint giggle, not playful, not human. A dry, broken laugh, like someone choking on their own breath. And it came from right beneath his bed. After that night, Jaden didn't sleep. He tried. God knows he tried. But as soon as the house went quiet, it started again. The whispering, always right below the bed. It didn't matter if he turned on the lights. It didn't matter if he played loud music or stuffed his ears. The voice cut through everything, like it was inside his head. I told him to move out, leave that house, stay at a motel, burn the place to the ground. Whatever it took. But he said something that chilled me. It followed me. The night before, he'd gone to stay at his co-worker's place, just to get some sleep. But even there, on a completely different mattress, in someone else's home, he heard the whispering, this time from the closet, and this time it wasn't just whispers. He said the closet door creaked open in the middle of the night, slow like someone was watching him through the crack. His coworker didn't hear a thing. Jaden sat there, phone in hand, flashlight on, but too afraid to move. The air was freezing, the kind of cold that hits your bones. And then he heard it again, that dry, raspy giggle. And then, this is the part that still makes my skin crawl. He heard a voice whisper his name. Not loud, not aggressive, just soft, familiar, like someone who already knew him. Jaden, he said. It felt like it came from inside the mattress, like the bed itself was breathing. A few days later, Jaden stopped texting me altogether. I thought maybe he'd moved, or finally gotten some help. But about a week after that, I got a call from an unknown number. It was his mom. She asked if I'd heard from him. Said he hadn't shown up to work. His landlord said the rent hadn't been paid, and no one could reach him. Police did a wellness check at the farmhouse. They found the door wide open. The lights were off. Jaden's phone was lying on the kitchen counter, still recording a voice memo. They said it had been running all night. I got a copy of the audio later, and I swear to God, this is real. You can hear footsteps, pacing, circling the room. Jaden breathing heavy, whispering to himself, praying. And then right at the end, there's a thump, like something heavy hit the floor. Then silence, then clear as day. That same woman's voice, soft and calm, whispering. Under the bed, under the bed, under the bed, over and over again. And Jaden, he was never found. After that, Jaden's disappearance sort of faded. No news coverage, no missing posters, just silence. His family tried everything. Police checked hospitals, credit cards, even pulled traffic cams. Nothing. It was like the house swallowed him whole. A few weeks later, his landlord decided to clean out the place and put it up for rent again. That's when something strange happened. The cleaning crew refused to go back after the first day. They said the bedroom, Jaden's bedroom, was ice cold, even though the rest of the house was warm, and that every time they turned their backs, the bed sheets would be messed up again, like someone had been lying in it. Recently, one of the guys swore he heard humming coming from underneath. A woman's voice. He said he lifted the sheets once just to check, but nothing was there. Only, and this is what really gave me chills, he said it smelled like old perfume under the bed. Faint, but definitely there. Like someone had been living down there for a long time. They quit the job halfway through. Told the landlord to hire someone else, and even he didn't go back inside after that. I know how all this sounds, and maybe if I hadn't known Jaden personally, I'd brush it off like another creepy internet story. But here's the part I've never told anyone until now. About 2 weeks after everything went quiet, I got a voicemail on my phone. No caller ID. It was 3 seconds long. There was no talking, no music, just a sound. The sound of a bed creaking, slowly, and right at the end. A woman's whisper, barely audible, like she was hiding under the mattress. I found you. I deleted the message immediately. I didn't sleep that night. I actually flipped my mattress up, checked under the bed, the closets, every damn corner of my room. But nothing. And I haven't heard from Jaden since. But some nights, when it's really quiet, like during a heavy rainstorm, I swear I hear creaking beneath me, like someone shifting under the bed. And sometimes, I think I hear breathing, faint, steady, waiting. If you're listening to this in bed right now, just check once, under the bed. Not because there's something there, but because something might be listening back. This story was told to me by a guy named Jonathan. He used to live in a quiet suburban town in Oregon, and from the way he described it, everything about his life was normal, maybe even boring, until that one rainy night. Jonathan had just moved into a rented house outside the main city area. It was the kind of place you'd imagine writers or painters retreat to. Peaceful, a bit too quiet, and surrounded by trees. He lived alone, and he loved that. No roommates, no loud neighbors, just him, a hot cup of coffee, and the rain tapping gently on the windows every evening. Now here's where it gets weird. It had been raining constantly for 3 days straight. You know, that kind of soft, hypnotic rain that makes you want to curl up under the blanket and fall asleep. It was that kind of night. Jonathan had worked a long shift, came home, made himself a sandwich, and was in bed by 11 p.m. Around 2:15 a.m., he woke up without any real reason. No nightmare, no loud noise. He just opened his eyes. The room was pitch dark, apart from the soft glow from the streetlight outside filtering through his bedroom window. At first he thought he'd go back to sleep, but then he heard something. A soft tapping. Not the rain. This was slower, more deliberate. Tap, 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 coming from the window. He thought maybe a tree branch had been pushed by the wind. He had a small tree right outside. So, still lying down, he turned his head lazily toward the window and froze. There was a woman standing outside, in the rain, right there, barely 2 feet from the glass. Her hair was long and soaked, sticking to her pale face. Her clothes were old-fashioned, like something from the early 1900s, a white dress that looked more like a nightgown. Her hands were at her sides, unmoving, and she was just staring into the room. At him. He didn't move. He told me his heart dropped so hard, he thought he was dreaming. He tried to blink, hoping the image would disappear. It didn't. She just kept standing there. And then, without lifting her arms, she tilted her head slowly to the side, like she was curious. That was the moment he knew it wasn't just some random woman looking for help. There was something wrong with her. Jonathan grabbed his phone from under his pillow, still not moving his gaze away from the window. His hand was shaking. He wanted to dial 911, but something stopped him. The woman smiled. Not a normal smile. It stretched, too wide, like her face was made of rubber. And then she lifted one hand and placed it, slowly, deliberately, on the glass. Her fingers were long, bony, almost claw-like. He bolted out of bed, ran to the hallway, slammed his bedroom door shut. He didn't even stop to think. He told me, and I remember this so clearly, "Bro, it felt like my body moved before my brain could catch up. I've never felt fear like that in my life." He sat in the hallway for what felt like an hour, just staring at the door, waiting for something, anything to happen. Nothing did. Eventually the sun came up. The rain was still falling, but softer now. He finally gathered the courage to walk back to the bedroom. And when he did, there was no one at the window, but there was a handprint, clear as day, pressed onto the outside of the glass, and below it, written in the condensation on the window, like someone traced it with their finger, was a message. "You saw me." Jonathan didn't sleep the next night, not even for a second. He spent the entire evening double-checking all the doors and windows, pulling every curtain shut, and keeping every single light in the house on. He even moved a chair into the living room so he could sit with his back against the wall, with a clear view of the front door. Nothing happened, but he told me, the whole time, it felt like someone was watching him. Not from inside the house, from outside, like a presence lingering in the darkness, just beyond the reach of the porch light. You know that feeling when your skin just knows something isn't right. He had that. By the third night, Jonathan couldn't take it anymore. He invited his cousin Mike to stay over, not because he wanted company, but because he needed someone to confirm he wasn't going crazy. Mike was a skeptical guy. He didn't believe in ghosts, spirits, nothing like that. When Jonathan told him about the woman at the window, Mike just laughed and said, "Bro, that's sleep paralysis or stress. You live alone in the middle of nowhere. That stuff can mess with your head." Jonathan didn't argue. He just nodded. But that night, they both saw her. It was exactly 2:17 a.m. when it happened. Jonathan remembers it clearly because he checked the time just moments before. They were both in the living room. Mike had fallen asleep on the couch, and Jonathan was watching some boring documentary on low volume, trying to distract himself. Then came the knock. Tap, tap, tap. From the back window this time. Jonathan froze. His heart instantly started racing. He didn't even look. But Mike, who had just woken up for a bathroom trip, heard it too. "What the hell was that?" Mike asked. Jonathan didn't reply. Mike walked over to the kitchen window at the back of the house, and I swear to you, Jonathan told me he watched his cousin's entire expression change in 1 second, from confusion to horror. Mike backed away from the window slowly. "Bro, someone's outside." Jonathan already knew who it was. He grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter and motioned for Mike to stay low. They both crept toward the back window, slowly, carefully, and peeked. And yes, she was there. Same woman, same white gown, soaked in rain, hair sticking to her pale face like strands of seaweed. But this time she was smiling already, like she knew they were watching. And in her hand, she was holding a small dead bird. She tilted her head again, just like the first time, and dropped the bird on the ground. Then she took 1 step backward and disappeared, not turned and walked away, just vanished, like the rain swallowed her. Mike screamed, "What the actual was that?" and stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a chair. They called the cops. Of course, when the officers came, no woman, no footprints, just the dead bird, mangled, neck twisted unnaturally. The police wrote it off as some weird prank or drugged-out local. They didn't even take a full report. That night, Mike refused to stay. Jonathan didn't blame him. He told me, "I would have left too, but I couldn't. I don't know why. I felt like if I ran, she'd follow." That week, Jonathan didn't sleep at all. He kept every single light on 24/7, started keeping a hammer by his bed, and even put salt lines by the windows, something he read online that supposedly blocks spirits. But nothing helped, because the woman wasn't just outside anymore. She had started showing up in his dreams. Jonathan's dreams weren't just regular nightmares. They were vivid, like hyper-real visions. He'd find himself standing in front of that same window, drenched in rain, the wind howling around him. But instead of being inside looking out, he was outside, looking in, and inside the house. Someone else was sleeping in his bed. A stranger. Every dream ended the same way. The stranger would slowly wake up, sensing something, and just as their eyes met across the window pane, the woman in white would emerge behind Jonathan in the reflection, grinning wide, with rotting teeth, and whisper something he could never remember. Then he'd wake up, heart slamming, covered in sweat. This happened 3 nights in a row, and then came the worst one. In this dream, Jonathan wasn't outside. He was back inside, in bed, trying to force himself awake. It was pitch black, rain pounding on the roof, and from the corner of the room, a soft giggle. He turned slowly, heart thudding. The woman was standing in the corner, her hair dripping, that same stained gown, her feet not touching the floor, and then she moved, quick, violent, like something glitching through space. 1 second she was in the corner, next she was standing over him, her face inches from his. She opened her mouth and said, "You left the window open." Jonathan jolted awake with a scream, gasping for air like he'd been drowning. Only, the scream wasn't just in his head. It came from the living room. He grabbed his hammer and rushed out, and what he saw still gives me goosebumps. The front window, the same one from the first night, was wide open, and sitting on the windowsill was that same dead bird. Again, exactly the same, twisted neck, same size, same blood pattern. Only this time, Jonathan never opened the window, and the rain had stopped hours ago. He packed a bag that night and left, moved out the next day. Never spent another minute in that house. He called me about a week later, finally ready to tell someone everything. I didn't know what to say, but I told him one thing. Good you left, man. That house wasn't haunted. You were. He didn't laugh, and he hasn't had a dream since. But you know the freakiest part? About a month ago, I drove by that old place out of curiosity, and I swear to you, I saw something in the upstairs window. Just a silhouette. Long hair, white gown, and a smile.